Hi everyone, and welcome back to She Likes Greens. I'm Maria, and I absolutely love having healthy baked goods at home to snack on. I like them to be filling, guilt-free, and most of all, they need to taste amazing. What we're going to make today ticks all of those boxes and more. It is my healthy apple cinnamon bread. It is made with whole grains to keep you full. It is just sweet enough, and it is so moist that you feel like you're indulging. Your day just got that much better. This recipe is seriously so easy to make. It's made with all pantry staple ingredients. The only fresh ingredient that you need is an apple. I'm using a green apple today because I really like kind of the bit of a tartness that it has with the sweet bread. But you can really use any kind of apple. It doesn't matter, just use whatever you have on hand. I'm cutting my apple into pretty small little cubes. I don't like them to be too big because I found that when I do that, the pieces of bread tend to fall apart a bit more. So now we're gonna go ahead and get started with our dry ingredients. I use whole wheat flour for this recipe. You could definitely use white if you want to, I prefer using whole wheat. Now I'm going to go in with our spices. We are using just cinnamon and nutmeg for this one, but we're using quite a bit of cinnamon, 1.5 teaspoons and 1/4 of a teaspoon of nutmeg. It really makes me mad that I cannot I want to put the spoon in the thing. Like, why do they make bottles like this? We do not use an egg replacer with this recipe. While many baked good recipes have eggs and egg replacers, this one I was able to make it and avoid having to use one. So we don't use a flax egg or anything like that, which makes it that much easier. Gonna go in with 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Don't forget this. I've forgotten this. It's not a pretty sight. As well as 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Then just stir all of this up and get it all combined. And now we're gonna get started with our wet ingredients. I'm using sunflower seed oil. You can really use any kind of neutral oil that you want. I just tend to have a lot of this on hand, and I like not having to melt coconut oil, so that's a plus for me. I also put all of my wet ingredients just in a measuring cup like this. It kind of helps me to just not dirty as many things. So I'm gonna measure out, we're only using 1/4 cup of oil. It doesn't really use that much, this recipe. Kind of takes a while. Hello. My arm's getting tired. Okay, finally got there. 1 cup of plant-based milk. I always use soy milk. It's like my favorite. It's my go-to plant-based milk for basically everything. I've also used almond milk with this recipe. It also works well. Those tend to be kind of the ones that I go for because they're a little bit thicker. They really resemble real milk the most. So that is what I like to use. We are just gonna add in a cup of that. I need to remember that goes up to the 1/4 line because we had the 4th cup of oil in there. My mental math is like on point today, you guys. Now we will just add 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Now we're going to go in with our coconut sugar. I have started using coconut sugar in a lot of baked good recipes. I really like it because it's lower on the glycemic index, which means it's not going to spike your blood sugar as fast. For me, that's really kind of the most important for my girls because I also feed them, they eat this bread as a snack. So any kind of baked goods like that, it's good for you, also great for kids because they're not gonna have that spike in blood sugar. Now, sugar is considered a wet ingredient. I don't know if you guys know that or if it's that is common knowledge because whenever you add it to the wet ingredients, it kind of dissolves in there and that is where it belongs. Does it really make a difference if you add the sugar with the dry ingredients? I don't know. So here we go. Then I just stir this all together. So now we're going to prepare our loaf pan. I like using some, what is this called? Baking paper? That's not what it's called. I like to cut it in a long strip like this to just go in the center of the pan. That way it doesn't get wrinkled around the edges and it just makes it very easy to lift out. So I fold it down on the edges like this and secure it with a clip. So now we're just going to mix our wet and dry ingredients. We mix these together just to make sure they're well combined. And then you add the most important part that you definitely don't want to forget, which is our apple. This should be pretty thick. That's completely normal. Just be sure to smooth it out so that it's in there all even. And then you gotta leave some on the spatula to lick. Best part. One more. I like adding a pretty basic but delicious topping for this bread. I add about a handful of walnuts. I just give them a rough chop. And then I just sprinkle them on top. I like to kind of press them in there. That way they don't completely fall off of the bread. And now we're just gonna go in with a little bit of coconut sugar. We're gonna sprinkle that on the top. About a tablespoon, maybe not even that. This is enough to where it just creates a little kind of nice crust topping. It's actually like really delicious and so simple. You don't need to make anything fancy, and it also looks really nice. And now this is all ready to bake. Make sure that you take the clips off, because we really don't want our house to burn down. Not fun. So we're going to bake this at 180 degrees Celsius, 375 degrees Fahrenheit for about 45 minutes in total. What I like to do though is when I first put it in the oven, I cover it with some tin foil, just like this, and I set the timer for 20 minutes. And then when 20 minutes comes around, I just simply pull off the tin foil. This keeps the walnuts from burning. And one thing, when you use this tin foil, don't throw it away after. I've used this one several times. It's not even touching the food, and I just like reusing it. Just don't throw away stuff that doesn't need to be thrown away. Here we go. Okay, so I just took this out of the oven and it looks perfect. The top is just absolutely perfect. That bit of coconut sugar just caramelizes a little bit at the top, and it just really makes a nice crust along with the walnuts. And now we're going to let it cool on a wire rack. I just take a knife and loosen the sides of the bread that do not have the paper next to them, just to help it pull out, and then I just take it out. And I'm just going to let this cool. It's really best to let it cool for about 30 minutes before you taste it, because before then it's just too hot. Yes, one thing you want to make sure that you always do is to check it with a toothpick whenever it comes out of the oven and make sure that it comes out clean and then there's not still any dough on it. So mine, usually at about 40 minutes, I check it and it's still a little bit wet on the toothpick. At 45 minutes, it comes out clean. But this can really vary from in different ways depending on your oven. So you just really want to make sure that this comes out clean when you take it out. So now is the hardest part of the day, where I have to just let it sit there and cool before I taste it. But there it, oh okay, that would have been a disaster. That would have been a disaster. Cool. I'm gonna hold the sides. I'm gonna hold the sides, yes. Okay, so now has come the magical moment where I can try the apple bread. I never taste the in part first because I feel like it's just like not doing the bread justice. So a nice thick piece. This is perfectly moist. I hope I can zoom in this. I don't know. It's like perfectly moist on the inside. This is like the perfect consistency that I like my breads to be. Okay, so the moment of truth. I love all of these warm flavors together. The cinnamon, the nutmeg, the walnuts, apple, all of it is just like perfect. And at the same time, I love knowing that it's healthy, made with whole grains. And it's just for me like the perfect snack, breakfast, or dessert. So does this apple cinnamon bread seem like something you would like to make at home? Let me know in the comments and subscribe, because I'm going to be coming out with new content every week.